Hi, it's John from Crafts by John UK. Today I'm going to show you how to create this cute birthday card. I've sped up this video because it's quite a long process and I think you all know the basics hopefully. So first of all, I've taken the stamp set and I've got a piece of watercolour card and I've got my two stamps. You can see the pile of things, platforms, whatever they are, is separate from the actual elephant stamp. These are brand new, so I'm also spritzing them with a bit of water and wiping them with a dry cloth just to make sure there's no dust from the production process before I stamp them. You can see it didn't stamp perfectly well first time. That's the benefit of using the platform. So I first of all stamped the elephant on the top in roughly the position that I thought it needed to be, and then I heat embossed that with some ultra fine clear embossing powder. Because I'm going to colour the image, it just helps if you heat emboss the edges. You can see there I've taken a little brush and I'm actually just getting rid of some embossing powder off odd bits of the stamp before I actually heat emboss and set it. Heat embossing does create you a nice little lip to colour up to. It also makes your black edges very glossy and defined, which is good. Now, a little trick I'm going to show you here. What I've done is I've got a piece of yellow tape. I'm going to re-stamp my elephant. I just need that little bottom bit because I want to create a mask. So I'm using this sticky yellow tape because I can then cut that out, stick that straight onto the stamped piece I've done. That will then create a mask and I can obviously stamp the piece that goes underneath it without getting the line through the elephant. There you go. You see me applying that a little bit. Put this back in my stamping platform. And then I'm working out kind of where to put my little platforms. And you can see I was kind of just checking out where the top is because I want the elephant obviously to sit perfectly on the top platform. So I stamp that, make sure it's fully stamped, then peel that off, and then again heat emboss just so that I've got a nice clear edges. And you can see I'm using my little brush just to get rid of any excess embossing powder, because I want to colour those in. If that powder stays on the project, it will stop me being able to colour in those areas. So I then heat emboss. You can see I'm doing all the bottom just bit by bit, basically, and then I've got my fully stamped image, and I'm also embossing the back just to make sure I don't miss any areas as well. So I've got a nice now strong image basically that I can now start my colouring on. So I'm cleaning up my stamps. Always handy to have a cloth next to you so that you've got something to dry with, and a lint-free cloth is a good one, so something that's been through the washing machine quite a few times. Right, I've got my stamped image there, and I'm going to use my Arteza watercolour pens to colour this. So I want some greys for the elephant, but you can see the elephant's also got some little features on it, little hearts, little stars and circles and things, so I'm using different colours. Got my water pen, and I'm going to start by laying some colour down, thinning that out with my water pen and just getting a basic layer of grey on the elephant. Obviously doing that before I start any more detailed colouring. There you go. So once I've got my layer of grey, I'm going to dry my water brush, and then I'm going to look at some of the other colours that we've got. I want to use bright colour in the bottom, so I'm just drying off that grey just to make sure that's perfectly dry before I continue with any other colours. So thinking platforms, etc. I'm going to do some dark shading first of all on the elephant, just give him a little bit more texture around his ears, around his trunk, and I'm just adding that very gradually. I wasn't too sure when I started this really how I was going to colour it, but I kind of just went with what happened really. So I just added little bits of sort of tone, different greys in different places, kind of drying it as I went along because I wanted to get it done quite quickly. I then obviously used a really nice bright yellow for the little crown. I used different colours for the flower that the elephant's holding in its trunk, and then I just picked out a couple of sort of similar palette colours, really just to colour odd bits on the elephant, leaving obviously quite wide areas grey. I coloured the little rug thing on the top in yellow, and you can see I used the yellow on kind of the stars and bits and pieces on him. But the main focus really on this is the platform. So I then decided to use some of those same colours on the platform. See, on some of these layers I'm actually just colouring around the edge, and then I'm using the water brush to pull the colour into the centre. That way you kind of get a textured effect without much effort. So picking up different colours, got some nice bright colours as well. You can see again, similarly around the edge, and then just pull that colour in. Gives you quite an interesting 3D sort of textured effect. Make sure you dry the brush off obviously between the different colours. You don't get contamination. There we go, and then we're sort of pink. So I kind of ended up in a pink and purple palette really on this. I was thinking purples and pinks along because obviously the elephant's got a bit of pink on it, And that's pretty much what we ended up with. So I kept it fairly subtle, picking out some bits of interest, but just generally in a fairly sort of pinky purple colour palette, basically. And I just used my pens, just adding a little bit of extra. If I wanted it slightly darker, I'd obviously darken the edges, and then just sort of tidy that up, blend it in with the water brush. You can see here I did a kind of a bright orange around that platform, and I decided I was going to put some gems on those 5 little points on that. Even though I had coloured them yellow, I then thought that was quite a nice little feature. Apologies, this bit's slightly off the bottom, but I needed it kind of close to me so I could actually see what I was doing. There you go, I've moved it up at that point. So that's colouring the bottom. We obviously want some nice, quite deep colour at the bottom. Basically just finishing off odd little bits of texture, a little bit of darker grey on odd pieces of the elephant, just to give it a little bit more shadow and make it a little bit more textured. There we go, a few bits of pink. It's starting to look quite nice. I had a little layer in the bottom of that one and added a bit more pink just to make it a little bit more vibrant. There we go, you can see how quickly that was, or how easy that was to colour. And at this point I kind of thought, I don't know, it just needs something else. So I then went and looked at my stencils. I found a sort of picked raspberry distress oxide, I think it was, that had some ink left on the brush. I wasn't actually adding any more ink, I think. And I found this dotty stencil. So I just went round with the residual ink on the foam pad, smoothie, and just sort of blobbed in, basically, just giving it a bit of texture around the edges. I then went round the edges with the actual sponge as well, just to tie it all in. But I just wanted to darken the edges a little bit, just so that the character was still highlighted with obviously a light halo around it, but also just had a little bit more of an interesting edge. I used these printed sentiments. I printed a whole load of these, and they were kind of on the edge of my desk, and I just thought, yeah, I'm going to use one of those. I'd got some orange and some yellow in the card, and I remembered that I'd got this quite nice sort of red, orange, yellow fade ribbon, and I thought, yeah, I can use one of these sentiments. So I just chopped one of those up with my craft knife, basically cut that out, cut it down to size. I inked the edges on that, kind of to match the way I'd obviously done the edges of the card. I used my cutting mat to just give me a rough size. I used 1 square either side of the sentiment, and then I just put that on there to see what that looked like. Yeah, that was going to work. I flattened the edges, and then I used the same sponge just to kind of put that same picked raspberry on the edges, just to tie it all together. At this point I went fishing in my ribbon drawer, I think. Or no, actually I mounted it on black first, and then I went fishing in my ribbon drawer, found that multicoloured ribbon that I remembered I had. There you go, I've just mounted that on black, so obviously it just looks quite professional. Also it ties the 2 layers together, because I'm going to mount the main image on black, kind of black on top of one another. It just looks kind of nice. So there we go, that's the rough placement around where I'm going to put it. Just centre at the bottom. There's that ribbon. It was quite a little find, this was. I found it in a really strange little craft shop in Norwich. And I bought a big reel of it because I really liked it and I thought it was unusual. It's got like see-through gaps on it. You have to obviously be a little bit careful how you apply it, but I always just put tape underneath whatever I'm going to stick on top, lay it down and then stick it on the back. That way you've got no problems with tape or anything being seen on the front. So I just used my eye basically just to tidy that up. And then a bit more tape on the back, and then similarly tape on the back of the sentiment, stick that straight onto the ribbon. I could have mounted it up, but I decided not to. That was definitely not in the middle, so I used the actual grid on my cutting mat, kind of work out where the middle was. There we go. And then all was left to do really was to just mount this card onto that black backing paper to match the one used in the sentiment, and then stick the whole thing down. This was a 7x5 inch card, so fitted onto a standard 7x5 inch card blank. And basically it's just a really cute little card. It was a new stamp set. It's called Party Elephant, and it's art by Marlene Clear Stamps from Studio Light. And it's quite a nice stamp actually. I think it's one I'll probably get usage out of because it's also got a set of numbers with it as well, so you could actually use it to stamp a personal number sentiment. So that's one that was a good little find, and I'll probably use again. But this was my very first play with it. Hadn't used it before, took it out of the packet literally brand new. So that was quite nice, and I was quite pleased with how the card came out. I've stuck that down. You can see I'm just making sure that that's all nice and flat, lifting the tape so that I can jiggle it around just to get it absolutely in the centre. There we go. You see it looks quite nice. That black edge just gives it a frame. Cards always look better if they've got like a darker edge, because they sit on a white background and it just makes it really cry out. At this point I think I probably haven't got my gems. There you go, yeah. And I just put 5 little gems onto that middle little platform. Just gives it a little bit of interest, makes it a little bit sparkly. There we go. Hope you enjoyed that. Give me a like and subscribe if you did. Thank you very much.